Everybody, or should I say good evening. This is Rabbi Karen, and we're here for our Tuesday Maariv service. You can join us on Facebook. You can join us on YouTube. You can join us on SeemShalom.com. We're all over. You just can't get away from us. So we hope everybody is well, happy, staying cool in this heat, and just basically enjoying. If you're on Facebook, please join us in the chat. Type hi so I know you're there. You could be joining us with Reba, Ellen, Sephora, Ziona, and our New York Ellen. And we're all saying hi to you as you say hi to us. Barbara, good evening. Good to see you again. Haven't seen you in a while. And Marvin is joining us on our Zoom. Okay, so let's get ready to begin our Tuesday Maariv service. Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is and how pleasant when we dwell together in unity. And now our call to praise. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vaed. Praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praise be Adonai, to whom praise is due now and forever. And now our evening prayer, where we acknowledge God's miracle of separating light from dark and dark from light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam. Asher bivaro ma'ariv arabim, v'chochma potech she'arim, u'vitmuna mishana itim, u'machalif et hazmanim, u'msader et kochavim b'mishmorokeyem, barakia kirtzono. You abound in blessings, eternal one, our God, sovereign of all time and space, whose word brings on twilight. With wisdom you open gateways, with understanding you alter times. Vary the seasons and assign the stars to their watches in the sky. Creator of day and night, who rolls light away from darkness and darkness from light. You cause day to pass and bring about night, distinguishing between day and night. El Chai v'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Li'olam Va'ed Baruch atah Adonai HaMa'ariv Aravim. Blessed are you, Eternal One, who brings on twilight. So let me welcome Marvin, who's here, Sephora, and Andrew. Welcome to our evening. And let me just give this a little bit of a pause for a moment and see who's on Restream. Okay, we said hi to Barbara, and now we're saying, how are you, Albert? It's good to see you again. Okay, let's go back. Okay. Everlasting love you offer your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. And now the prayer that doesn't ask. Rather, it's our prayer that states, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Blessed be the name of his glorious kingdom forever and ever. And you shall love. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha. V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'leftecha v'aderech u'shopcha v'kumecha. Ushartam la'ota yadecha v'hayu l'totafot bein einecha uv'taftam al mezuzot beitecha v'shurecha leman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedushim le'elohehem ani Adonai Elohechem asher choseti ethem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lechem le'elohim. I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. Ani Adonai Elohechem. I am the Lord your God. And as Miriam and the women went through the miracle of Adonai's parting the Red Sea, they sang, Mi chamocha balim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, no ra tehilot, oseh feleh. Who is like you, O God, amongst the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders? Your children witnessed your sovereignty, the sea splitting before Moses and Miriam. This is our God, they cried, Adonai will reign forever and ever. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praise are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Chashivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'achamidenu malkeinu l'chaim ufrosh aleinu sukat shalomecha. Adonai, cause us to lie down in peace and raise us up in life. Spread over us your shelter of peace. Guide us with your good counsel. Save us for your name's sake. Shield us and remove from your path all hostility, disease, war, famine, and sorrow. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings. For you are a protecting and saving power, truly a sovereign power. Gracious and compassionate are you. God, our going and our coming in life and in peace, now and for all eternity. Spread us over your shelter of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Eternal are you, blessed are you, eternal one, who spread your shelter of peace over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Yitgadal v'yitgada shemei rabba b'yamadira hirutei b'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayedecha beit Yisrael ba'gala uv'zman kariv v'yimeru amen. Yeheshmei Rabbo Mevorach, Le'olam Le'ol Me'amaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yibar, V'yiraman, V'yinaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shemei Dekudisha, B'richu, Le'elam, Michol Bechata, V'shirata, Tush Bechata, V'nechemata, Damiram bialma v'yimeru amen. Okay, so taking a moment, welcoming Amy to our little group tonight. And we still have Albert and Barbara on our chat. Okay, everyone, let's head back. Excuse me. Just had to take a quick drink to let down whatever was sticking in that throat. And now our prayer, the Avot, the Imaot. We ask Adonai to remember the blessings and the promises made to our ancestors. And here we remind Adonai, we are Mishpacha. And let's please remember the promises that you made. And we're asking you for the promises for you to keep. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibur v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei HaKol, v'Zocher Chazdei Avot v'Yimaot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah. And now we talk about how Adonai is our superpower. Adonai is the only super strength we need. Givurah means strength. And Adonai is the only strength that we will ever need. Ata gibor li'olam Adonai, mechayeh hakol ata rav laho shia, mechakeh chaim bechesed, mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim v'rofeh cholim, umatir asurim, umkayem emunato lishenei afar. Micha mocha bal givuro umido melach melech memid umkayem umatzmiach Yeshua v'nemanata lahayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of reading my Devar, I'm going to ask you to speak. So when you need to speak, please unmute yourself. Don't unmute yourself right now because a lot of you have background information and telephones and televisions, so don't do it yet. But if you have something to say, just call it out. This evening's Parsha is a double, Matot, Masai. And this Parsha begins with women. And this Parsha ends with women. The first part's about vows. It delineates the rights of women who make vows. The male, let me take a step back first. Many of you know I was a history teacher in my other real life, pre-retirement. And I've often found that when we read something, whether you call this a primary source or a secondary source, it gives us a window into what the society was like back then. Gives us an idea of how they lived. If there's a law that says you shall not murder, they were murdering people. You don't make a law unless you need a law. You shall not steal. Well, then people must have been stealing things. So they stopped it by making a law, you shall not steal. So let's look into the insight of what society was like these many thousand years ago. So we're back on vows. Male head of the household can overrule decisions made by the women of the house, be it a daughter, a sister, or a wife. Let that register. The male head of the house can overrule decisions and vows made by women in the house. Men's vows, the importance of vows. Men cannot go back on their word when making a vow to Adonai. Women make an oath. If her father or brother, if he's head of the house, or the father hears it and has no objection, the vow stands. The father is given the right, or the brother or the husband, to annul that vow that woman has made if they don't agree with it. Look at the relationship between that and Kol Nidre. Kol Nidre, as we know, absolves from vows made under duress. So both absolve One is requested by the person reciting Kol Nidre. The other is requested by someone else, the male head of the household. Let's think about why as we continue on. The Parsha ends with the daughters of Zelophehad. The daughters approached Moses because the law said, as remember, the tribes are going into Israel. And the 12 tribes, including Joseph's sons, were considered 2 tribes. They were given those honors. And Moses is dividing up the land before they get there. These tribes will go to the east of the Jordan. These tribes will go to the west. They'll go to over here and divide this mountain. Remember, land is important. You have cattle, you have farms. Who's going to get the best land? Who's going to get the most land? So it goes to the sons. Zelophehad had no sons. He had 5 daughters. Sounds like Tevye, right? 5 daughters. And they approach Moses and they say, this was last week's Parsha, we want our father's share. Why should that get lost? We want that inheritance. There's nothing in the books that said they couldn't have it. Adonai said, yes, they could have it. No strings attached. Interesting thought. This is the first time that women made a demand, and they got it. But again, let's keep in mind no stipulations.
There was a string attached, Rabbi.
Excuse me, why are you going ahead of me?
Oh, okay, excuse me.
Don't correct the rabbi. The daughters are given an honor in the Torah. Their names are listed 3 times in the Torah. These are the women who fought for their rights: Mala, Tirzah, Heglah, Milcah, and Noah. 3 times the Torah mentions them by name. Considered an honor. So as the children of Israel were approaching the promised land, the tribe of Manasseh grew concerned. Remember, the importance is who's going to get what land and how much and where, and what natural resources are on this land. Is there good water? Is there good trees? Is there good soil? Etc., etc. The tribe grew concerned that if the daughters married and their sons were to inherit the land that had belonged to Zelophehad, the land would go to the tribe of the husband because the sons belonged to that tribe. So the land that belonged to Manasseh might go to the tribe of Benjamin or Reuben or any of the other tribes. So they felt this would violate a divine command. Why? Because Adonai split the land. And if Manasseh land goes to the tribe of Reuben, that's defying what Adonai said, or so they rationalized. So it was decreed which tribe would get which parcels of land. So they had the compromise. The 5 women had to marry within their tribe. Nobody said who they had to marry within the tribe, but it just had to be a tribesman. They could marry any male, and no male could claim guardianship over the women or over the land. It's a yin and a yang. Women have rights, somewhat, but they have rights. Let's look at it again, how they were living back in those days. This was the conclusion of the book of Numbers. Okay, that's how it ends. And now we're going to go into basically the songs of Moses as they're getting toward the land of Israel. And as we know, Moses will die before they get there. So we have some thoughts. I'm going to throw out some questions. You could throw out some answers. Why would women not be held responsible for that vows they made? Why would men be responsible for disallowing that vow? How did the daughters of Zelophehad make great strides for women as opposed to women making their own vows? Is there any significance to this episode concluding the book of Numbers? Anyone have any random thoughts or any thoughts of your own that I didn't question? Just come on and call it out.
Well, the fact that ends the book, it gives women a different role before they're going into the land.
I like
They
that.
have.
Keep going, Ellen. What were you saying?
I had read a commentary, like your response to this one. It said that even though the daughters of Zelophehad, they did petition and they did get their rights in that sense, they were able to keep the land, that it was still based on all patriarchal. It was done in the name of their father. It was all done from the patriarchal viewpoint, even though that is the commentary. This is one commentary. They kept saying that the writer kept saying, yes, they did. They were able to petition, but it was all done based on patriarchy, not anything to do with women's rights.
Okay, now I am not going to agree or disagree. You know, I just like to play devil's advocate.
Yeah,
okay?
well, so that's why I'm.
And my point being that what other point of view did they know?
True. Yeah.
You know,
Right.
let's go back to those thousands of years.
Yes.
There was
Yeah,
no
I
other
am
point of
taking.
view.
Yeah.
It still proves to me that the laws can be changed.
Okay.
And that's positive because I've always felt that matrilineal lineage, as far as who is a Jew and who isn't a Jew, should be changed because we have DNA evidence now of who the father is. So if I could be a sister of Zelophehad in modern times, I would really work hard to ask the Orthodox community to accept that fact.
I agree with you on that fact. That's a good point.
I'll give you my personal opinion on it. I absolutely agree with you, except they don't even accept women at the wall reading Torah.
Right.
And there was a near riot in the egalitarian side at a young boy's bar mitzvah.
Yes.
That's right. I remember that.
To ask them to accept DNA, that doesn't mean we can't fight for it. You know,
Actually, one Jewish grandparent should be sufficient. That was, if someone wants to practice Judaism, that was good enough for Hitler.
Well, let's not bring his name into it. But I've even read where if somebody just wants to consider themselves Jewish, they should be considered Jewish. I don't mean just sitting there eating a bagel and lox and saying, hey, I'm Jewish. But I mean attending services, studying, etc. One rabbi said that should be enough to consider them Jewish without a conversion.
And I know the patrilineal lineage is accepted in the Reform, and I think possibly in the Masorti community as well.
I believe so. And yes, Reba, I see you wrote that too.
But I would like to see us as one clan so that the Orthodox community is up to date and part of our whole in terms of the growth in that area.
I don't think they even agree with each other.
I have heard some Orthodox rabbis in the United States saying that at one point in time, they do agree that the DNA would be acceptable. But that's a very small percentage of the Orthodox, not the ultra-Orthodox. This is Orthodox. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
that I have heard.
Remember, there's just so many different sects. I mean, I grew up in a conservative as an adult, we went to reform and we just saw there's so many differences from one kind of reform to another kind of reform.
That's true.
I
There's
mean,
classic reform, there's
yeah, reform was making a movement to the right. Come the 90s and the 21st century, where, and this is where I was in it, we brought more Hebrew into it.
Mhm.
As a group, we said, hey, let's wear talissim, let's wear yarmulkes. And we had the classical reformists leave that shul because it went to the other way for them. But yet we tolerated the organ, which for many of us, you could tell new people, because as soon as that organ would go, they'd go like that. And then after a while, we got used to it. So, there was a lot of compromises there. And yet, some people, like, they break off and go into there and do their own things. And so, can we agree on these things? I mean, we can't agree whether you're going to wear a kippah or not. I'm sorry, Marvin, you were going to say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
But actually, conservative and reform seem to be converging.
Well, that's what I'm saying is reform is taking a movement to the right,
Yeah,
leaning more to conservative, but not doing it for the 3 hours. I noticed that's a big not happening. Whereas conservative does the Amida, and then they repeat the Amida, and they do the 7 aliyot. That's a 3-hour service from 9 to about noon. And you used to be able to time exactly when the rabbi's sermon was, so you know when to leave. But the thing was, reform is still keeping it the 1 hour and 20 minutes or so. So, some are still retaining, and I've seen a lot of synagogues where they share space now, reform and conservative, and they're starting to go to each other's synagogue. Maybe that's how.
a
Go ahead.
temple here, the Reform Temple here rents space to couple of conservative temples
Mhm.
in the building.
I taught at a Hebrew school that did that. On Friday night, the Reform had the sanctuary. Saturday morning, the conservative had the sanctuary, and people began going to each other's services. So that was very interesting. Also, if I was called up for an aliyah, the conservative would probably acknowledge it if it's egalitarian conservative.
right.
One rabbi, I'm on a couple of rabbi boards on Facebook, and one that's a conservative or reform sharing space with Orthodox. And Orthodox asked them to come join the service. But the big question became, do we accept an aliyah? Because they wouldn't accept women for an aliyah. So therefore, if they give us the honor of an aliyah, do we just say no? And this led to a whole discussion. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer.
Mm-mm.
So there's so much out there we don't have answers. But now, if we look historically back, women obviously had very little authority over themselves.
There's something called egalitarian Orthodox.
I know there's an egalitarian conservative. I've never heard of egalitarian.
I don't know what it really means.
Okay, I'll tell you.
I heard of it in Canada.
Okay, I went in New York. I grew up in a conservadox shul. That was the only shul in the neighborhood. So I could never have an aliyah. I could never read from Torah.
Right.
There was no mechitza. We sat together, but it leaned toward the orthodoxy. Didn't go to, that was through my teenage years. As an adult, we joined a reform shul, and I was there for 14 years. And one day I'm there maybe the first weekend, and the rabbi says, "Are you coming to my Torah class?" And I went, "Me? I'm allowed to go to your Torah class?" I never missed one. Never missed one. Became a teacher there, became a mitzvah there. I took off my Judaism. When they closed, it was time to go back for me to conservative. But I couldn't go back to a place that wouldn't accept me. I'm part of a minyan for an aliyah as a Torah reader. So I found an egalitarian. In other words, what anything a man could do, a woman could do. That's what egalitarian conservative is. So
Makes sense.
so that's, I got my conservative, but I got my right to be an active participant. You
The
understand what I
Lubavitch,
mean?
yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Oh,
No, go ahead,
that's
Helen.
all right. Well, I know the temple I go to, it is basically conservative, and they follow as much Orthodox as they can, but they're also leaning toward the Reform. They're kind of, because it is kind of, you might say, essential to a lot of different Jewish sects. I mean, we even have, we've got both, well, and there is a Chabad group in the area, and occasionally we do things with them. And there's a Reform over in Winter Haven, sometimes do things with them. But the girls, they're getting involved in our shul now. They're slightly maybe not leaning toward female rabbis quite yet, but they're maybe getting there, tweaking.
Well, they're
But,
doing,
it's
doing a lot of, Orthodox are doing a lot of female leaders, leading
Yeah.
They
Torah study
are.
groups.
They're calling them Rabbah.
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, my friend used to live up by you in Mount Dora.
Mhm.
So is Mount Dora near you?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. One little shul, very Orthodox rabbi, but it was a combination of everybody. I attended services there once. They had a separation, a mechitza, men on one side, women on another. They had a table between them. The men, after reading the Torah, would put the Torah on the table. And then a woman leader got up and picked up, because you can't hand it directly, can't touch. But she would pick it up, bring it over to the women's side, and then the women would read. That's their compromise.
It is.
Okay. Again, am I thrilled with it? No, I wouldn't attend. I just went for this one time for my friend, but that was their compromise. And you know what? But that's the beginning.
They're
The
trying.
daughters inherited the land.
Right, yeah.
That was the
I have a
beginning.
question now.
Yeah.
I have a question now, because my old synagogue where I used to go growing up, all the ladies were over here and the men were over there. No
Right.
lady could be called up to the bima. She could make a donation for a man to read for her, but
Right. If they're making a separation, then women are not allowed on the bima.
yeah, they weren't.
Right. That's the way I grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where my son was bar mitzvahed, the young women were bat mitzvahed, but they weren't allowed to participate after.
Yep. And again, those are some of the compromises, especially in the 60s and 70s, as the young girls were getting involved. They had to
In the
figure out what
80s.
are they going to do.
No, just the 80s.
Could only
Yeah.
be on Friday
They
night,
were-
couldn't be on Saturday.
But these was always on Saturday. They had their bat mitzvah on a Saturday.
No,
The
I'm
Shabbat-
just
Yeah.
saying that different shuls made different,
Oh, absolutely.
compromises.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
that they had to figure out what to do. And as we are evolving, you know how many times I'll go to one of the senior citizen areas around? You're a woman rabbi? I've never seen a woman rabbi. Here I am. Okay, so this is, it's a very evolving, very changing world. I mean, really, Judaism didn't change much in the 17 and 1800s,
Mhm.
and suddenly reform hit the scene in the 1850s. And that was a big change. And because of reform, you now had conservative. So big changes. And again, we're not like the Catholic Church where the Pope says, this is what you do and that's that. Each synagogue makes their decisions. Okay? Zelophehad's daughters did the first big thing. They were able to acquire the land. Yes, it was from a male point of view. Yes, they had the tribe, but that was about the land. They couldn't make vows. They couldn't, but it's a beginning of a change.
It was, and I see changes in my Lubavitch Chabad community. They're
Really?
now keeping the gates open, and they say we'd rather you drive to shul rather than not come at all. And
Wow.
even though they have a mechitza
Yeah.
during the service, when we have our social hour afterwards, Kiddush and so on, we sit together co-ed. We do
Wow.
Torah study co-ed.
I had to speak to the Chabad rabbi in my neighborhood back in New York. I had to speak to him for one of my relatives. It was the first time I was ever in Chabad, and this was a very popular Chabad. And I got there as they were doing a Torah study, and it was mixed. It was very nice,
Right.
but the services were not mixed.
No, they're not.
And your rabbi here has a problem with this. I know Chabad does many great, great things, but there's just some things that I can't turn my back on.
Mhm.
And
Well,
that's
being a
me.
lesbian, I love having the mechitza.
Okay. Now, the first Orthodox shul I was in, the mechitza were 4 plants on the floor, this big. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, what's the point of having a mechitza if it's this high?
Yeah, we
There were
couldn't
4
reach
plants
over
on the
ours. They
floor.
were so high. They were like this. Like,
Okay, let's head back to our services.
Nice talk, Rabbi. Very nice.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
I wanted to hear all of
Nice
you.
discussion.
Okay, so let's take a few moments to listen to the prayers in our hearts and in our minds. Oh, say shalom, bimruma. Oh, yeah, say shalom.
Shalom aleinu.
Please mute yourself.
I'm sorry.
I got it. Oh, say shalom, bimruma. Oh, yeah, say shalom aleinu. Ve'akol Yisrael. Imru, Imru, Amen. Oh, say shalom, bimrumav. Uyase shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael. Imru, Imru, Amen. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heaven, let peace descend on us and all Israel. And let us say, Amen. And now let's prepare for our prayer of healing. We'll type in names on Restream and in Zoom. And I'm going to start with Sid and Joyce Becker, Luna and Katie Marcello, Seal's daughter, all those with COVID, all those suffering from PTSD, Valerie, Erin, Maddie, Trey, Malcolm, Maya, Rose, Amy, Tova, Beth and her father, Albert, all of us and our beloved pets, Ellen in New York. I'm going to add your name. Amy, I'm going to add your name. All those suffering physically, emotionally throughout the globe. Dorothy, Marlene, Jean, Paul, Timothy, Paul, Taylor, Diane, Fishman. By the way, I want to thank you all for the prayers for my husband. Thank you. He's doing well. Thank you. Ephraim Ben Usher.
Can I read you my names? Because for some reason I'm having techno hell.
So go ahead, call them out.
Okay, Pam Hazel, Rabbi Gohi, my friend Janice is going through chemo. Albert Madison, Valerie Madison, Maddie, Beth and her dad, Tova, Kathy and Lynn Ford, my cousin Harry who has dementia, Carol, Ellen Rose, Ellen Freeman, Jesse, Jane, Jamie, Danny, Alex, and Sarah.
Thank you. I want to add Robin Sellinger, and I want to add a friend Robin, who I know. Georgette Stephen, Steve, Daniel, Lynn, and family. Ronnie, Naomi, all who need healing, Rabbi Galit, Ellen, and Beverly. Do we have any other names? Sean's dad, Luke, and Nancy. Okay, I'm going to get back to Mishe Be'erach Avotenu B'chol habracha L'imotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Be'erach Imotenu B'chol habracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. And I'll add some last minute names: Julius, Ben, Nora, Jenny, Bot, Nina, Perry, Ben, Betty, Rabbi Galit, Amy, Marvin, Ellen Friedman, Tova, Siona, and her mom, Beth. Okay. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kikoye haratzot, v'lo samanu kimishpachot hadama, shelo sam helkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamanam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'ne'eman, V'haya Adonai, L'melech al kol haaretz, Bayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad, U'shmo echad. We recall the loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at the season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. These memories of all of them are with us. Our griefs and sympathies are mingled as we praise Adonai and pray for the coming of Adonai's kingdom. And if you know somebody who died recently, or you're observing a yahrzeit, please say their names to yourself that we may always remember them. Yitgadal v'kadash shemei rabbah, v'yalmad divrei chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayedecho beit Yisrael, b'agalav v'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yiroman v'yinaseh, yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal, shemei gudashah b'rechu, le'ilah michol b'chata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, Damiram v'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. And may all those who are in mourning be comforted by the one who comforts all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you again for joining me this evening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. We
Sorry
are
I'm having techno hell, but well,
not a problem. JSLI.net, if you're interested in our JLEAP, everything you want to know about Judaism class, our rabbinic class, our cantorial class. We have new classes starting this fall. Check us out. We're here Monday through Friday, We're here for your service, but we're here to enjoy our time with you. Thank you all. Be
Thank
well,
you.
everybody. Ziona, get some better internet. And again, have a wonderful and a safe.
And Ellen Rose, no more surgeries.
Amen.
Take
You
care,
have to
everybody.
sit on
Baruch
me.
Hashem. Toda rabah, Rabbi. Thank you for
Bye-bye.
the service.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Keep well,
you.
Everybody stay
everybody.
healthy.